Hello and welcome to Movie Phone. For Blockbuster Shrinks, press 1. Blockbuster Shrinks is playing now.
All right, we're back at it again with another podcast. This is the Redhead Family Therapy Guy.
And a mic.
And we're talking about a good one. You got the touch. You got the power. Dude, I was all about Van Halen. I was like a bat out of hell, dude. I had this little like mini 10 speed and I was like rocking. It was like I had it from like my paper route. And I had a little cassette Walkman, and I totally had the tape, the Van Halen album 5150, which I think this song is on that album. And I would jam around, dude, with the headphones on, man. No helmet, flying around the middle.
I remember having a cassette player.
So the ones that went in the ear. I had the ones that were like in the ear.
Oh, like the
remember when they progressed
itself.
from like over to in?
They
were like super light. They were like super light. I think that's right. I could be remembering that wrong.
I remember I had a yellow. It was a yellow cassette player. I don't know what brand. It was probably like a Sony or something.
It was Walkman. Walkman was the brand.
Yeah,
like
Walkman
that's like
is what.
It's like tissue paper. It's like tissue is an actual brand.
Yeah, it's like the only. I can't remember. I can't remember.
I think it was
Sony.
Walkman.
Was it? Yeah.
I think it was Sony that did Walkman.
And I had a yellow one for the longest time.
That's awesome. This movie is like Transform. I actually watching this movie, like I was taken back and I was like, oh yeah, like this was my jam. Like Transformers was my jam. It was like it was like Matchbox cars, like in the younger, like the 5, 7.
Sure.
And then it totally like I was all in on Transformers. Like Transformers is definitely the cartoon I watch a ton, and Voltron 2. And we're just like Thundercats as well. I was big Thundercats, but like Transform, like everybody was like G.I. Joe, but I did a lot of G.I. Joe. Like Transformers was my jam, and so I spent a lot of time watching, and I had tons of Transformers, dude.
I remember watching it. I remember having Transformers and then getting frustrated when I couldn't remember how to transform them. Like I'd get stuck. I still have some Transformers actually, but that
was never an issue for me, bro.
I don't remember. Like I started watching the movie and I remember bits and pieces, but I don't remember it all that well. But I want to ask you,
dude.
So with Transformers, and I agree, Transformers is really. I do enjoy Transformers quite a bit, but with you,
just like the sound quality.
What about Transformers for you was like made it your jam? So not just the movie, right? But the cartoon. What about Transformers made it your jam? Did you ever do the comics also, or?
No, I wasn't ever a real comic person because that was kind of a reading thing, and reading was hard for me, so that wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I got a little bit older, I started getting a bit more into comics because of artwork, but. Like reading value, like anything that was reading, I was a bit averse to. But Transformers was my jam. I think just Optimus Prime is so good. He's just such a good, honorable, noble guy and figure. I think there was like an article I read or somebody talked about. I remember talking to somebody about how like Optimus Prime was like a father to like a whole generation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's such a single like latchkey kid thing. So definitely I was drawn to Optimus Prime. Plus, like I said, I was a Matchbox kid. So I think because it was like cars, that was really cool. And I totally had a bunch. Like I had the fire truck. Did I have Jazz? Is Jazz the Porsche? I had Jazz. I had Optimus Prime, of course. And so I remember
having like
I like those toys. Yeah,
like a jet one. Who was
the jet one?
That was Transformers, right?
It was, yeah. And in the cartoon, the TV cartoon one, that is I think who they fly around in. The Autobot. The Autobot jet's the one they fly around in, which I had that where it's like it folded, like the legs folded back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember too, it was like 4th grade, I got Unicron for my birthday. Like my dad bought it. And I remember opening it up and
was it huge?
it was gigantic, dude. And my dad like opened up and him doing like he's like getting out the instruction book, and I had it transformed in like a minute, and he's all like,
That's
I guess you
awesome.
don't need this, and I was like, nah.
I'm a
And
pro, Dad. I'm
I
a
just like I
pro.
just figured it out, right? You start playing with it and pulling it this way and pulling it that way, and you just
The
figure it
older
out.
you
And
get,
so,
the harder it is to figure
oh
out. I
yeah, I
feel
don't
like.
think I could probably do it at all now.
Yeah,
Actually,
if
we
I
had a manual. We bought a manual, a modern Unicron, maybe when the Transformer movies came out again or whatever.
yeah,
And I remember like really having a hard time with getting it, but Emmanuel could totally get it, transformed back and forth super quick. And it was big.
yeah.
It was like basketball size big.
I have a
It was really
couple that
cool.
are about 20. So they were probably late 90s, early 2000s when they came out. And if my girls play with them and don't put them back, it takes me forever to figure it out.
Yeah. So I love like I just like the sound, the
Oh, it's great,
Transformer
isn't it?
sound is just so cool. And
Yeah.
Optimus Prime's voice is fantastic.
Yes.
And they're just great. I mean, I hate like the newer ones that they tried to modernize, like are not as good. But I don't remember the stories per se, but I
I
just
don't either,
remember
but the
I
sound is nostalgic. Like when I
yeah, the
watch the
sound.
movie, like the sounds, I'm like, oh, it almost made me feel like a kid again, even though I couldn't remember the
Yes.
movie because it'd been so
Yes.
long since I watched the animated movie.
I was a 10-year-old boy, dude. When I turned that movie on and the opening credits, I was like, Nick, I'm like 10 right now.
Well, the music is so good
That's
throughout it.
so good,
What
dude.
year? Oh man, I don't know if
86.
it's 86. Okay.
Yeah, it's 86.
Yeah, so I was tiny. Oh man, I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I remember I've seen it a couple times. I hadn't watched it since I was a kid.
I
So
don't think
having
I
that
went.
nostalgia with those certain sounds and then the music, I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this. I don't remember the story at all.
I don't know if we went to the movies. I think if I would have gone to the movies, I would have remembered. So we must have not gone to the movies. So I don't remember what like it, I think I saw it on TV. I think they cut it for
Yeah, I saw it
TV.
on TV.
And
At least
then
that's what I remember.
we got the VHS tape. I bought it somewhere, or maybe my parents bought it for me. It was quite expensive. It wasn't like the $100 version, but it was like a good
Yeah,
40 bucks, I
I
think.
know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it was like a good 40 or 45 bucks, I think. I got my parents to buy it. We
I
still have the
remember.
VHS tape. I thought I had the DVD too, but Jack couldn't find it. And I was because I wanted to watch it last night. But so I bought the electronic on Amazon. It's like
Oh,
5 bucks.
cool.
It's like the 30th anniversary.
Yeah, that's the one I have on
Mhm.
Apple. I was watching this and I couldn't like I was kind of surprised. I didn't remember Prime dying that quickly in the movie. I
Dude,
knew he died, and I remember that,
everybody dies, dude.
but
And
I
it's
don't
like
remember it happening. So I mean,
I
for
was
you,
horrified by it. I
yeah,
was
tell me because
horrified. I
I
was
can't remember it as a
horrified.
kid. I
I
don't
was
remember my
horrified, and I
reaction.
remember being like, "That sucks, dude." I'm like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Really?" I think I was in disbelief. I think I totally was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, they're gonna resurrect him." I didn't think about it like that as a kid, but I think I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna bring him back. They're gonna bring him back." And like they never did. And I think as a kid, in one respect, I didn't like it. I mean, I liked how the
yeah.
story went, how Hot Rod ascended to leadership or whatever, and I thought that was really
Mhm.
cool. But watching it as an adult, I was like, this is intense to like kill off a beloved
And so quickly.
yeah, to kill off a bunch of beloved toys. And I thought to myself, is this like thematic and story? Or I'm like, oh, they just wanted a new generation of toys. Like
That's
like
what,
everybody
yeah.
had everything. And it's like, how do you introduce a whole new generation of toys
Well, and
when you like, how do you don't replace Optimus Prime?
well,
Like,
and back
like,
when
how do
we
you do
were
that?
kids, like toy lines are what created things, right? You think
Mhm.
kind of like nowadays you have like a comic that creates a movie or something. I feel like when we were kids, it was
Yes, it was
toy lines
reverse.
that
Right.
created the
Somebody
stuff.
would come up with the toy and then they would make
Hmm.
a TV show or they would make a movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because you get all
absolutely true.
obsessed over the toys, and then they'd launch like a show
Right.
to go with it or something. You'd be like,
Right.
oh, then it's even more awesome.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah,
so
it's
why do
backwards.
you think so you think it might have just
I
been
wonder
a
just if
money grab
yeah, I wonder
type
if it was just
thing?
like, hey, we need a whole new crop of, characters because, how many different times can we invent Optimus or maybe toy sales are down, so let's invent a whole new, which they were cool. I mean, they were cool. I mean, like
Yeah.
what's I'm forgetting what the new bad guy what Ultron become or Megatron becomes Galvatron, right?
Yeah,
But they
Galvatron,
even gave him a new
which is
voice.
Leroy, or not Leroy Neiman, Leonard Nimoy,
Right.
I think is his voice, right? At least in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that didn't translate to TV, right?
I don't know. I doubt it. I would think,
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think the movie characters ever I don't
Did they
remember the
go? I
movie
don't
characters
remember.
going
Yeah.
TV. Like I don't know if it just kind of maybe they upset their fan base. Like it'd be really interesting to kind of look at the history
All I
of what
know
happened.
is I agree with you. Like I remember as a kid always having the Mack truck, right? This was
Mm-hmm.
Optimus Prime, and I loved the color scheme with the red and the blue. Um, and I don't remember the movie really, like watching it as a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't really know what my response was. I can kind of vaguely remember being
I
like
remember being upset.
surprised, but I can't remember much more than that.
I don't think I really understood. Like I think I was real kind of in disbelief. Like I again like I think I was just really shocked. Like are they really doing this? And I still think I liked how the story turned out because you know Unicron got destroyed or whatever. But I remember being real confused and being like, okay, well that's the movie. I still have my TV show. Like I'll just go watch.
Yeah.
I'll go watch Optimus Prime on my TV show or whatever. I think, and I was probably starting to age out. I don't know what I can't remember what grade 86 was, but I might have started aging out to another thing, or I started getting more outside versus like just playing with toys or whatever it was.
What do you think is like the overarching theme
Dude,
of
there's
this
so many.
movie?
So yeah, I think one is it's really bold that they went and killed off the main characters.
Yeah.
And then man, there's a lot of powerful themes. You know, I was trying to chew a lot on what is the Matrix. You know what I mean? Which is
Uh-huh.
interesting because that Matrix term has become,
Yeah, my
you
wife
know,
looked at
so
me and she's
loaded.
like, "Oh, the Matrix."
The Matrix. There's a whole lot. But before we go themes though, I want to ask
Oh, sure.
you, and I
Mhm.
want to talk about like what was your favorite like if you to the degree that you were into it as a kid, did you have a favorite Transformer?
It would have I would assume it was probably Optimus Prime because that's the
Mm-hmm.
one I remember having the red truck. I remember obsessing over
Mm-hmm.
the Mack truck, right? Obsessing over this. And I remember loving it. And I also remember that kind of being like a thing when I was a kid. Like Mack trucks were really cool. You used to always,
Oh
pull
yeah.
your hand down when they're driving by to get them to honk their horns.
Yeah,
And then I
totally.
remember also not long around that time, I can't remember Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, where
Yeah,
he's
that
trying
was
to
like
win the
same
Mack
time.
truck.
Yeah, there totally was like a working man thing going on, wasn't there?
Yeah. And so I feel like from what I can remember as a kid, I remember always loving Optimus Prime, but I do remember I had a
Mm-hmm.
jet also, and I don't know who the
Yeah.
jet is or anything. But I think
Mm-hmm.
Optimus Prime is my favorite. And even when you look to like the new movies that have come out, if I were to pick a favorite character, it would still be Optimus Prime. I
Oh,
know a
that's
lot of
cool.
people like Bumblebee, and Bumblebee is really cool too, but I just have always loved Optimus Prime. This kind of real, it's almost like a meek. I don't know if that's the right word, like meek and kind but strong person,
Yeah.
like just this depth of power that
Just like a
he
force, right?
controls with meekness, right? At least that's
Yeah.
what i
Yeah.
I feel like I
He's
get
got he's like he just is like solid, right? He's just like
yeah.
dependable and solid and like I don't know if
And yeah,
predictable is the
dependable is a
right word.
great word, like very tough
Like
and
he's gonna
resilient,
yeah,
right? Like
resilient.
he
Yeah.
really, and that's something that I think,
Like he'll carry it all on his back, you
well, I
know.
think that's something like our generation really, I feel like, up until I think the advent really of, the last 20 years, probably the advent of accessibility of internet and other things, not having to really have those natural, and we've talked about this before, this natural built-in patience builders. So I think for me, I connected a lot with the resilience because, there was a lot of other things you had to do as a kid that just took a lot of patience because there's no
Mm-hmm.
other option,
Right.
and I always give the example of going to like the movie store,
Right.
right? And you'd
Right.
go
Right.
and you'd want your movie, and then
Oh, dude.
they'd have like
Wasn't there?
5 copies total. And of course they're all gone, right?
Right. Right.
And nowadays you don't even have to.
You don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah, there's no resilience built in. You just go online and you find it
Get
on
what
one
you
of the
want
streaming
right
devices, or
now.
you rent it, just
You get what you
immediately.
want right this
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
And so I think that's, as I've gotten older, that's something that's become even more interesting when we look back and watch some of these stuff from when we were kids is just how I really feel like I identify with those types of traits, just because in some ways I miss those things. Like I miss the excitement of going to a movie store and not knowing if they're going to have what I want or not. Where nowadays
that's so cool
that.
too. That's so cool too, because how many other movies did you find and discover because
exactly
of that?
like
right?
how
like it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah, you just would go and just look down all the aisles. I'd always go to sci-fi. I'd always go to comedy. I didn't really ever go to drama, but you know, if I couldn't find anything, why not? Right.
Right. Yeah. It's a really lost thing. That's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, Optimus Prime definitely I like that resilience and stable, just like this notion that he was dependable. Things could just be on his back. It was just like Optimus Prime has the answer. Optimus Prime, and he was meek, he was considerate, you know, even merciful, like, which is essentially what got him killed in this movie, is that, like, you know, he had Megatron beat, but because he kind of paused for a minute, was like, really, you're asking for mercy when you've been so merciless? And
when I think he represents for me something I want to be, something I hope I can be, but it's tough, right? To be those things. It's not easy. And yet he does it, which is really appealing and intriguing when you have characters like that will make ultimate sacrifices because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And in life, you know, you experience so much life, you get older and you realize it's hard. It's really hard to do that.
To be dependable, dude, to be a person with integrity is so hard, man. To be like, you got to watch what you say, and then you got to do what you say you're going to do. That's a lot.
Well, and I'm not always that, right? Of course I'm not. But I love the idea of seeing those examples, because it gives me hope to continue to try. Right. Even though I'm not, to continue to try to be those things. And it's just fun. I think for me, you know, I remember Transformers. I remember the toys being fun, of course. I love the idea of having toys that were like puzzles, right? That you could put into a new puzzle and to put it back to the old puzzle. But I feel like for me, Optimus Prime became more than a toy, more than a cartoon.
For sure.
And so, yeah, to answer your question, I really like Optimus Prime, and then I liked Mack trucks when I was a kid for whatever reason. I just feel like there was a lot of Mack trucks.
Big and cool, man. It was big and cool.
Kids.
It was really cool and interesting, and, you know, out there.
Who's your favorite character?
I would have to. I guess I'll have to be a little cliche. I would definitely probably say Bumblebee. I was definitely drawn to Bumblebee.
A lot of people really like him.
I was really drawn to Bumblebee. I was really bummed they didn't. They had a Bumblebee, didn't they? I think I had one. I also really liked Optimus. You know, it was always bizarre to me that people like the Decepticons. I remember being like, bro, why would you ever want to own a Decepticon?
I think Bumblebee is great too. Like, I think that's another character that kind of symbolizes a lot of good virtues. But on your point right now, for whatever reason, I always have liked what is it? Oh, I can't think of his name. The one that has the cassette tapes that come out of his chest. Soundwave. Thank you.
Dude,
Soundwave.
Cool. No,
I've always loved Soundwave.
I digress. Soundwave was bad, dude. I like Soundwave. His voice is freaking cool as anything, and those little mini like cassette transformers. Like, one of my buddies had one of those, and it was like he had the three, and they would transform it, and they totally would fit in there. Like, I was like some engineering genius. So I really thought I thought Soundwave was cool. I did
always like Soundwave, yeah.
But I couldn't embrace it because I'm like, they're the bad guys, man. Like, what are you doing rocking bad guys? Like, he was cool.
They're almost just just like the quintessential bad guy, right? Where it's like, I'm bad because I want the power, and that's all that matters, right? I want the control. I want the power. I don't care about anything else besides that.
And I'll tell you, the thing I loved about this movie, and the thing that might have, I don't know if this is possible, to outweigh the sadness of my traumatized mind of I think the fact that the movie killed Optimus, I think I was just like, well, this is just another product. It's not the same universe,
Yeah.
and I still have
Kind of
Optimus, so I don't know what they're doing.
compartmalize that, almost like
Yeah,
a trauma
yes,
response,
yeah, it's
right?
totally trauma response. But here's the thing that was great though, is I was like, finally, you got rid of Starscream. That freaking and he's so annoying with his whiny voice. I freaking I hated Starscream, and I never understood the relationship between Starscream and Megatron. I'm like, dude, what is going on? Just put this guy out of his misery. Why would you even want him around? He's always like betraying, and they're always, like
Hmm.
lying. He's always trying to upend them and take the power and all this. And he's like, who would follow this guy
I
anyways?
know.
Like Megatron at least like projected power and like
Hmm.
domination. Like Starscream was just like a
He
whiny,
seemed, and
snivelly,
he seemed, yeah, so weaselly, and it's
oh,
like,
so
man, how did?
easily and
And
bad guy.
it's almost like I guess they just feared him or something. Like even in the movie, I'm
I
like,
don't
why are they
know,
even
dude.
listening to this guy? Like, why are
I
they
know it's
even going
crazy. He didn't
along with
even
it at
the
all?
I thought the Transformer movies, the movies, I thought they did a decent job with Starscream because he wasn't quite as whiny. I mean,
Yeah.
he was, but not as much so. And he was like cool. Like the way he transformed in the movies and the way he did some things, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, man. Like that's cool. But I didn't understand. Like the other thing that I always thought was really didn't make sense to me is that Megatron would transform into a gun for then Starscream to use, which I'm like,
Yeah, it's
that's not.
interesting.
I'm like, that doesn't work. I'm like, first
Yeah.
of all, there's no trust between them, so why are they gonna
Yeah.
why are they gonna partner? And why is he shrinking down to this gun? Like, it didn't make. I just was like, that's dumb. Like, they didn't think that through, man. They didn't think
No.
that through.
But as
Like, he should
kids,
have
it's
been
like we
like a
don't know any different, right?
yeah,
We're just
like he
like, oh,
should have been
okay.
like he could have been like a cannon or something. You know, he could have been like a like a tank
Something,
or a
well,
cannon
something
or
equal to the size, right?
yeah, or something, but just to
Something
like
that
be
was
a
bigger.
gun that then Starscream's going to use, and like, why is that? Like, they all have guns. Like, why is him becoming a
Yeah.
gun? Like, the gun on the shoulder thing is like cool or whatever, but
A
like the
tank or a
his
cannon would make more sense, right? Because you should be able to, especially if it was a cannon that had like wheels, right? Then he could
well,
manipulate himself and
he
shoot.
could have even like transformed and then just been immobile, but then transformed out to move. Like, I would have
Oh,
even like
that's
I could
true.
have bought that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this
Yeah.
huge gun, which is what who was that took his place? What he transformed into Galvatron, which is what they did with Galvatron, which is like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like he transformed into this gun, and like when he annihilates Starscream, which is the best part of the movie, one of the best parts of the movie, I was like, yes. So he's like this electric gun that like melts Starscream into
Yes.
out of existence. I was like, finally, be done with this nonsense. So I really liked that. That was really redeeming. But and on the Bumblebee thing, I have to say this. I'm gonna have to say this. Man
Right.
alive, I freaking hate the Bumblebee movie. I was so mad. I was so mad that they took my Bumblebee and made him into a coming of age story for a teenage girl, dude. I was like, look, I'm all about teenage girls can do whatever they want to do, and you can have empowering teenage girl stories, but you're going to take my most beloved character and make it about a girl coming to age. I was like, come on, man. That's not who wants to watch Bumblebee movies.
I'm trying to
Like, what are
remember.
you
I
doing? It
remember
was so
watching it.
bad.
I remember
I was
not
so mad.
like I
I
remember
was
being
mad.
fine with it, but I
I
didn't
was
see it in
not
theater.
fine
I
with it.
saw it, I think, free on one of the
I
streaming.
was diametrically opposed to it. I'm like, you don't know your fan base. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, teenage girls of this age are not into Bumblebee. So why are you making this classic Transformer into this story? I
Well, I
was
feel like
so
that's kind of what they
mad.
did also with Transformers with Bumblebee, like the movies, right? Where he
Well,
kind of was that
Camaro.
yeah, he was
Yeah, they
kind of
didn't.
like that support to what's the guy? I can't remember the kid's name.
Oh,
Shia
well, but
LaBeouf,
Shia
or
LaBeouf,
what
yeah.
his character's name
Well,
was.
that was a little,
It was kind of like his coming of age too.
yeah,
And Bumblebee was like the support character. So I feel like if I remember the movie right, I feel like it was kind of the
the
same
first
thing
Transformer movie.
again,
Yeah,
but it was a
yes,
girl instead
girl.
of Shia
Shia
LaBeouf or
LaBeouf, right?
whatever.
Which of course I can identify a little bit more with the guy, um, and Shia LaBeouf like was, I mean, he's a brilliant actor. I mean,
I think
he was so good. I mean, the storyline had its major holes or whatever, but Shia LaBeouf was like really
well, I
good.
think when I remember seeing the Bumblebee movie, I think I thought it was gonna be like a movie about Bumblebee, but
It
it
wasn't
was more so about her, right?
her. No,
If
it
I
was.
remember right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I remember thinking, oh, this is fine or whatever, but it's kind of just the same kind of thing they did with Transformers with
But and if
Bumblebee.
I
There's not really a
remember,
lot of
well, and
depth
if I
there.
remember, her arc wasn't significant, which is probably another reason why I hated it.
Yeah, I can't
If it
remember.
had been really meaningful or something like that, or been like had some real weight to it, maybe I would have valued it more. But like,
I can't
I think then I
remember.
also was like, I didn't even
Yeah,
care. I was like, this is shallow. It didn't even
man.
like the arc wasn't even good. So all right, so I'm gonna let that
John
go.
does not
Dude, I'm
like the
sorry. It's like
Bumblebee movie.
Bumblebee, dude. Well, and it was really sad to me that Volkswagen wouldn't sell the rights, or, I guess I don't know if they did an exclusive deal with Chevy or whatever it was, but I was really sad
Yeah, to
that,
stick with the Camaro.
yeah, that they didn't, that, I don't know. I think I heard that Volkswagen was like, we don't want to be associated with you, which was dumb because
Yeah, I wonder why not.
they could have totally like done a model car and like, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, do you not understand there's a whole
Maybe it
generation
just was
of
too
kids?
expensive. Like I wonder
I
if
don't, I don't
whoever
know.
does that wanted too much money or something.
I can't say I found an official source, but I read somewhere when they were making it or before the release that
Mhm.
was like Volkswagen didn't want to do a deal with them. So they went all in with, I guess it was a Chevy. They
Man.
went
Yeah,
all
I
in with
think it
Chevy.
was the
So
Camaro that they did with
yeah, well,
Bumblebee.
all the vehicles were Chevy vehicles, so they did
Oh,
an
in the movie it was
exclusive
all
deal.
Okay.
So they did a deal to, market all the cars, which is
That
like a
makes
super
sense. They do
smart
want.
idea. I mean, that's like what the Italian job did,
I
with
think
when they did
most
the,
movies do that, right? Usually they'll, or I guess if they're big enough movie,
if
they'll
they do a
have,
license deal or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
they'll do
it's
a
like a
deal
big
with the,
commercial. I mean, it's a commercial for the freaking
yeah.
car for like
And then
2
they
hours.
just have that brand in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so those were definitely Bumblebee, definitely Optimus. And then I would give a nod to I would give an I think Ultron is or sorry, Megatron is cool, and I would give a nod to Soundwave. Soundwave
Yeah,
is
Soundwave. I saw a Soundwave. Oh, what is that? Oh, Funko Pops. They had a big Soundwave, and and it was open, like it wasn't in a box. I can't remember what store I was at, but it was just open, and I pulled the thing to see if there was and there was cassettes in there.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
Or one cassette or something. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I
So
wanted to buy it.
when you saw the movie for the first time, or even watching it this
Oh
time,
man,
but
yeah.
more this time, I guess, like,
Mhm.
what was your impression of like the Unicron figure and like that whole persona?
Yeah, when I first saw him, I didn't remember seeing him. I don't remember a lot about the movie, but when I saw him this time, I thought, oh, okay, so this is like some big, powerful thing that just really is even worse, right? Even more bad
than the squabble between
the
factions of Transformers.
And I could imagine as a kid probably seeing that and being like, what is going on? That's
gonna
freaky.
take them all down.
Yeah. And so I remember even watching it this time, I remember thinking, oh man, that seems kind of hopeless. Like, how are they going to deal with that? Like, that's crazy town. It's like huge. And there's a point when is he at Cybertron or something? And he's like smacking his fist down into the planet. And he's like as big or bigger than the planet.
Yeah,
I'm like
bigger than the planet. He's just like
how this seems
his fist.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's gigantic.
And he's indiscriminate, right? He doesn't care. He just wants to control everything.
Well,
I'm like, how are they going to take this guy down? That's kind of the impression I had.
Yeah, which is cool, right? Because he's just a sucking force, right? He's just a black hole, right? He's just
which reminds me of he's like the darkness in Fifth Element, right?
Yes, yeah, great, yeah, great. It's just that idea. He's like a cancer, right? He's just this thing that will. It's almost like he's also kind of like the movie The Matrix. Like he's like Agent whatever, that just that just replicates himself.
Oh, what is his name? Agent Smith. Thank you. Oh, good thing you remembered. That would have bothered me.
Yeah, it just takes over everything.
Well, I'm surprised when Unicron showed up. I'm surprised that not like everyone's eye, or they didn't just have like the black blood coming down from their forehead, like the blackness in Fifth Element did to everyone.
Out of So I remember just being like, oh my gosh, this is serious. Like I remember being like, this is a serious threat. One of the things that I thought was really creative about the movie was how the universe was just proliferated with like AI machine planets. Like, there's multiple. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like we think of humans and things being humanoid, but they just went like the humanoid was the exception. and the AI mechanical lives were like
or the norm.
Yeah, which was
Mhm.
kind of really cool, and interesting, I thought, But yeah, he's just this overwhelming force that's just going to eat everything. He's like a god, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what's going on with the like the Marvel universe, right? Or the Marvel verse. Like, what is those things called? They're called Eternal. Well, that's the Eternal thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all Eternals, right?
So there's so if you like, are you talking about like at the end of, I think it was Loki, the Loki show where
I didn't see all the Loki,
they go, oh, okay. Well,
so you're
never
gonna
mind.
lose me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's part of the idea is that there's like the
a
further they
super
go, there's
race,
like a superpower person
right?
that is the bad person that's like deeper, right? So we've had all these things go on.
It's
I don't
another
know a ton, I
layer.
know more about DC than I do about Marvel, but I think that's the idea, is that
Yeah,
we've kind of just pulled the curtain back a little bit, but we've not
more.
actually met the uber
Well, you
powerful.
you get a little bit more into that in Love and Thunder.
Oh, do you?
Those,
Yeah, I've not seen
yeah.
it.
So I'll refrain from making some connections there too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that's yeah. I mean, it's just an overwhelming, powerful force of
Yes, that was my
sucking, eating,
and it just feels
cancerousness.
hopeless to me because I'm like
Yeah. What do you do?
this dude's just killing everything. Like, who's
Yeah,
gonna
and then
be able
like
to
the
stop him?
claws. Like I think as a kid,
Yeah.
I was shocked with the indiscriminate destruction. I think that as a kid, I
Yes.
remember it's like, well, it felt kind of like, oh, it's interesting. It felt kind of like the same messages we got about nuclear bombs at that age, right? Like in
Yeah,
the 80s.
true. Remember we
Isn't it
used to
like,
have to do the shelter in place
yeah,
drills in our
yeah.
classrooms,
Which
and
I remember
they'd have
even
you
as a
hide under your
kid,
desk, and I'm just thinking,
this is
but the
dumb.
video you showed, like, there's nothing left. What is
Yeah.
hiding under the
Yeah,
desk gonna do for
I
me?
remember thinking that too. I remember being like, why are we doing this? If it just lights everything on
Yeah,
fire
everything.
with heat, what are we doing? Like, what is that?
And did
So
you
yeah,
always have like
it's
they
that
tape the
dread.
door or whatever, or the window on the door they'd tape during the shelter in place? And I was like, I wonder. Well, I
Yeah.
remember them talking to us about, oh, we have to cover all the air ducts and cover. And I'm just thinking,
No,
man,
dude.
you just showed me this video and like everything's gone, like it's all rubble. I'm just,
Yeah.
why why are
Why
we
are we
taping anything?
I just watched a video not too long ago, like an updated like YouTube video about what if they launched what the current power like the fusion bombs, like
Yeah.
what it would do. Oh my
Oh, I don't know if I could watch it.
gosh.
That sounds scary.
It's really sobering, dude. Like it's really sobering. Like just one of these aspects, there's so much heat,
Uh-huh.
the amount of wind that would be produced because of the sucking of
Yeah.
oxygen from such a huge source is just
Uh-huh.
like just the wind,
Could
not
they
even
put
like
a speed on the wind or anything?
they might have, I just don't remember,
So
but
the
yeah, I'm
wind
sure they did.
itself, not even
Just
the
from the heat
explosion, but the
and
wind itself
the
would just
air being
decimate
sucked,
everything.
yeah, just the air being sucked into the space because of the temperature of heat and the evaporation of moisture and how that would just affect
Well,
airflow.
it's
It's
like
like
Terminator 2,
crazy.
right? Remember in Terminator 2 when she has the flash, it's not really a flashback, it's like a premonition
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah. Like
the
yeah.
playground, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, and
the
they just
heat
like
that just
dust.
like yeah, it turns everything, or it's the wind that does it before the explosion even. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm remembering wrong, maybe it was the explosion, but I
Well, just
remember
all
thinking
of
there was
the
like a brush of wind first.
all of the catastrophic forces are crazy. Like, yeah, they make like a description of like the mileage of just absolute heat annihilation.
Oh,
And then they like talk about just all the other effects of things that would be affected by the cataclysmic,
just
setting off.
make sure you get
And then they
under your
talk about,
desk quick enough.
yeah, right. And then they talk about like what would happen, the next day and like what it would be like 3 weeks from
Well,
now and how
nothing, because
much,
I'd be dead.
right?
I'd be gone.
It's crazy,
That's what
man.
I would hope for. To be honest, if there was something like that, just drop it on my house and I'm good. Then I don't have to worry
Yeah,
about the next day.
I know.
I don't want to live in that.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic world would not be
Although
something.
I like to watch post-apocalyptic
Well,
dystopian
it's
movies.
curious to consider reset. I don't think they have it right that people would be like. Anyway, that's not what the movie
What
we're
were we
watching.
talking about again?
We were talking about Unicron and what
Transformers.
he
Yeah.
represents. What he represents is the sucking force of eating everything. That's all he is. He's just this
Yes.
big hole
Yep.
that shoves everything in it and melts
Hmm.
it all down and makes it
Well, do
himself.
we find out? I can't even remember now. Do we find out like where he came from or
No,
what?
they don't say. He doesn't say that. He's just, this
Okay.
ominous force, and he just like, I mean, the script writing's pretty weak. I don't know if it's like, well, it's kids, doesn't matter. We'll just say the most
Yeah.
deliberate, direct thing we can. But he's just kind of like, there's a matrix, and you have to destroy it. Which is like,
Yes.
it's the thing that can destroy me. Which of course, like Megatron's like, yeah, I'm gonna get it and then hurt you. Okay, so I love the foreshadowing too. So, Optimus Prime's death is traumatic and
Yeah.
horrible. I can't spend too much time on that. But what's interesting is, how Hot Rod like touches it to give it to who's like the temporary leader
Yeah.
who
Is
also
that what the
dies.
Matrix is? What is that thing called? The Power Cube or whatever? What is it called? Do you
No, it's the
remember?
Matrix.
It's called the Matrix. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Matrix. And so the guy so Ultra Magnus is who like initially takes Optimus Prime's spot,
Yeah.
which always confused me because even as a kid, I'm like, that's the guy from Unsolved Mysteries. So it's kind of hard for me to trust you.
Yeah. I think he's
Like
good.
you're kind of scary,
You're the
and
one
you're
that talks about all
introducing
the
scary
freaky
things. Because I
things.
remember sitting on the couch, cuddling up next to my mom, being like, "This is terrifying. That murderer is still out there somewhere." You know what I mean? It's
Unsolved
like
Mysteries is scary. Still to
it
this day,
was.
I do not like to watch.
It's so like, and he's still on the loose. This
I
is another one of
know.
those unsolved
Unsolved
mysteries.
Mysteries,
Yeah, dude, he
man.
was so intense and just like, and like, so I instantly heard him, and I'm like, I don't know if I can put my trust in this guy, Ultra Magnus. So it was good that they moved on to Hot Rod. They killed him off as well, and moved on to Hot Rod. But I thought it was cool that there was this foreshadowing where Hot Rod like hands it to him or grabs it or something like that, or touches it, it falls down or something like that, and he grabs it, and there's a little bit of a sparkle,
Yeah.
sparkle
Well,
all around.
I don't know if, I mean, I've just watched it once and it's probably been, I don't know, 30 years since I've watched it, but, but I remember thinking, oh, why didn't Hot Rod get it to
Right
begin
then.
with?
Well, because he's
Yeah.
kind of was Hot Rod, man. He's like
I
young.
know.
He's like
Yeah. He's got some
he's
maturing.
cavalier, right? He's too
Yeah.
immature. He hasn't developed. I love like half after he like I was inside Unicron when he gets a little taste of the power of the Matrix, and all of a sudden he's like a hot rod with an SUV like RV tow behind or something. Like he
Yeah.
like becomes like more Optimus Primey or whatever. I was like, wait,
Yes.
it's like he's like
Yeah.
this hot rod car with a trailer ish,
Uh-huh.
boxy look to him or whatever it is. Um, so to jump, I guess we could jump ahead. Like what do you think about um what do you think about the message of it needed to be like a hot rod versus, Galvatron, which is the resurrected Megatron, wants to use the Matrix to destroy Unicron. What do you think the message is there of why Galvatron can do it?
Oh man. I don't know if I really thought about it much.
Right? Because like even Hot Rod kind of understood that. Hot Rod's like, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Like he understood something about why he couldn't wield the Matrix. Like it was something about the Optimuses. Like that's what they do in the Transformer movies, the modern ones. They
Yeah.
make something of the Optimus, to be one of the
Yeah.
higher
I
order.
guess I kind of just, yeah, assume because I mean, like it seems like like they're there to protect, right? So they're there for um really to help.
Preservation.
Yeah, yeah, to help things continue forward, where the Decepticons are just about power.
Mm.
It's not about
So
protection or moving
there's a
forward.
certain level of power that's unwieldable if you don't have integrity or honor or
Well, I would think
preservation or protection.
biologically that would be true. Otherwise, you would have annihilation, right?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
would. Yeah.
you'd have to have, like, there has to be something that has allowed things to move forward.
Right.
We're talking about these devastating weapons, but even with devastating weapons, I would have to think there would still be a path forward some way, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
I
that's
mean,
one of the things about evil that's always a problem for me. It's like it doesn't work. Like
yeah,
it doesn't work. Like how do you have this force like the Decepticons where you have like this infighting between Megatron and Starscream? Like it doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't work. Like it doesn't.
it doesn't seem like it works forever,
I
right?
mean,
And
it can work for a minute.
that's what's really
Yeah.
interesting about history to me is you have empires, right? But no empire lasts forever, right?
China's done the most, and they are a culture and society that's so hardcore on culture and
Hmm.
order, and they've, with that, um, with those norms or with those expectations have been around for a long time,
They have.
and they're rising. They're about to take the cake,
And I
pretty
think
soon.
but I
Yeah.
think I think that that's the, kind of my thought, right? Is that, I mean, I don't know that I thought a lot about this in the movie. Like I said in past podcasts, I don't, my brain kind of surface level, but but
Whatever, dude.
I think like, yeah, I think that, for me, they represent protection. They represent, like Optimus Prime doing what's right because it's right, even if it
Mm-hmm.
means at all costs.
Right.
And for
Yeah.
me, that is power. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see
Well, it's
evil
honor,
doing
right?
it, right? I see them doing something different to preserve themselves. But there's
Right.
more
Not to
power
right.
in, at least from my perspective, my thought is, and that's why I think in this moment it has to be that, like the selfish one is not, and we all have selfishness, of course, we're human,
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
but I think that the power is going to really come from that place of, I'm doing it because it's right,
The greater good.
not because I think I'll gain something from
That's
it.
such an important distinction of preservation of self versus preservation of what's good and right,
Yeah.
or something that serves the greater, the most greater good. It's a really important distinction that we see between darkness and evil. I thought it was really interesting that they subconsciously or consciously, defeated Unicron by going through his eye.
Yeah.
And and that the ship was really, I remember even this time going, oh yeah, I remember as a kid thinking that ship is weird that they get from like the weird planet that they end up on with the
Uh-huh.
spinny heads, like you're innocent and they still send you to death, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was such a great commentary on like what's happening in our day and age. It's like innocent people are just being sacrificed at the altar. It's like
Yeah. I was watching that. I was
you're
like,
pure
what
and
the
innocent.
heck?
Well, it's a sacrificial religion, right? It's just
Yeah.
like you're innocent. We're gonna give you to the sharks or whatever. You know what I mean? It's
Uh-huh.
like, oh, that's really dark. There's a lot of dark themes in this movie. But I thought it was really fascinating that, that the Autobots, Hot Rod just like boldly goes right into the dude's eyeball. Cause it's kind of like, yeah, that's it. Like when you're faced with an overwhelming force of darkness that can consume you, you got to just
Yeah.
go right at it. You have to go right into its face, like right into its center. And I thought it was really interesting that they defeated it from within, right?
Yeah.
That they had to go inside the darkness to find where the place was that they could pull it down,
Which is true of healing, right? Oftentimes you have to go to where it's uncomfortable
yeah,
in
gosh.
order for that healing to begin. And that can be really scary. And oftentimes we shy away from that, but it
Mhm.
doesn't ever fix it, right?
Yeah.
The shying
Well,
away just hides or covers for so long.
yeah, and the movie still too, again, it's like another really dark theme where like some of the Transformers are being picked up and they're dropped into the ooze of going into the matrix of or the inner oneness with Unicron. And I remember being like, how disturbing that was, that they're like melting in the as they're
Yeah.
getting dropped in, and like his dad's next, which
Oh,
I think
I
it was cool.
know.
I think it was cool that it was just like the kid's like, go do it. He's like, I don't have a gun. He's like, well, go figure it out, essentially. And like he like did it. He's like, yeah,
Yep.
I'm this little kid and I went for it, and you know, which is like so much is the case. It's like if you think, well, I'm not Optimus Prime, or I'm not this big person, I don't have all the answers. Like, just go do the best with what you can and do something, you know, and that best effort will do something good, you
Well,
know.
and not only that, the good sometimes is just what you learn in doing it. Maybe you
Yeah,
don't get
absolutely.
maybe you don't get the result you're hoping for, but it's still the good is what you learned in
Hmm.
that journey. I found it really interesting. So they're in Unicron, right? And then I can't remember exactly what happens, but there's a point where they're inside of them, I think in the beginning, and then like they do something and a water floods in. Do you remember that? I remember
Yeah,
thinking
that
like,
was at this
what's the
part.
water? Like, is he
Yeah, it
peeing on
like
him or something? I
I
didn't
don't know. It was like there's
understand
a lot
that
of
at
things
all.
that didn't add up, dude.
I was
There was a
like,
lot of gravity in space. There was a lot of gravity in space going on, which doesn't really work. There was a lot of different things going on. Unless I guess the thing in retrospect that I could give them about the misuse of gravity, maybe they were trying to deal with the fact that the planets had gravity themselves. So maybe that would, but there was a lot
yeah,
of things that
maybe.
I'm like, dude, they're in space. That doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Uh, it was
But
awesome.
yeah, so that whole notion of was really cool. And of course, you know, delivering the Van Halen song as he's
Yes.
like, you know, as he's unlocking the Matrix was really cool. The Matrix for you represents just the right answer,
Mm.
the power, the
Yeah.
good
So the Matrix itself,
in this
yeah,
movie, which is the
yeah. So
ball of
the
glowy,
power
crystally,
thing.
and it's like this concentration of good power. And it's interesting
Yeah.
that would. It's interesting. I wonder what about that would. Why would that stop Unicron? Why would this ball of light
Well,
stop
maybe it's more
Unicron?
so just about, I don't know. Maybe it's not the ball itself, but what the ball itself
Represent,
represents.
yeah, what it
And
represents.
maybe it's that representation that gives
That
them the
stops the
power to
concert.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The
Gives them the
idea,
ability. Like maybe they already have the ability inside of them.
right? It
They just
focuses
don't
it,
actualize it until they
right?
have the
Which
matrix.
is an important thing to realize about metaphors or
Hmm.
objects, that the object becomes imbued because of the thing that it represents to
Yeah.
us, that we then
Hmm.
use it
So
to
true.
transmit ideas or to focus ideas. It's a really powerful, important point, you know, because we think of it as like a wand, but it's like, but maybe the wand is just the thing that allows you to focus your power and magic, you know?
Yeah. Well, and, you know, even just little examples of this where you have someone, maybe they take a piece of string and they tie it around their wrist as like a reminder. Well, that string doesn't, it's just a string, right? But what the
Hmm.
string represents can actually be really helpful for people in giving them a reminder or motivation to move forward. Or maybe they wear, you know, a watch, or I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wear a wedding ring. The wedding
Sure.
ring itself is just, it's just a ring. It's nothing
Right.
but
Right.
what it symbolizes. I think that that's important. Something that maybe we lose sight of at times in our life, where we forget how just having something and placing meaning on that can really be powerful to us. You know, oftentimes people will come to me and they'll be stagnant in something, and I'll say to them, well, you know, is there something that you can do or change, or something that you can have? You know, I'll talk about you know, having a routine activity that I do and it gets kind of old, and I'll either try to change up how I do it, or maybe I get a new thing involving that activity that I start using, because it that gives me more excitement, although the activity is still the same.
Hmm.
You know, it's still serving the same purpose, but the way that I'm viewing it is has changed and giving me more of a power to accomplish or power to do.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting. It's a great point. To kind of consider that becomes focused in one area. I keep going back to this idea of Megatron, and just how it's so powerfully articulated how subservient evil is, you know, that like it's interesting, like the mutiny that happens with Starscream, where they just like what does he say on the plane, like as they're leaving? Something like survival of the fittest, I think is what he says. The survival of the fittest, and they throw out all the broken Transformers, or sorry, Decepticons. And then, it's um Unicron that picks them up and like can magically resurrect them, which is why he's like this god, right? He's like this
Yeah.
demigod that has enough power to at least grant um Megatron. The thing that I was really surprised by, I was like, so I could maybe identify with Megatron, but how would you like to be one of the minions? It's like, all right, Megatron, you're now going to be Galvatron, and these are your minions. And it's like, you just get to be a minion.
Yeah, I don't know
This
that I'd
refers to them. This refers to
I'd,
them as the minions. See?
I
It's like,
don't know
take
that
your
I'd like it.
minions. It's like,
But
take your minions and go
I
get me
think,
the Matrix.
I think it's a good question because, you think about in that context, how would I like to be a minion? But I think, even in my life, there's times where I'm just a minion. Like I fall
Mm,
prey to
yeah,
just doing this thing just to
to
do, yeah,
subserve
like I'll get
some whatever.
caught up in a show and I'm just watching this show to the point where finally I'm like,
I'm not
I'm
even
not really
enjoying
getting
this.
enjoyment out of this anymore. I'm just, but I'm a minion to that show,
Became
right?
well, the modern vernacular would be that you're just a bot, man. I've heard,
Oh, a
like, yesterday.
bot. Well,
I
that's
took
kind
all
of
these
cooler than minion.
I took all these youth on a boating trip yesterday, like 10 boys, and
Uh-huh.
they were like smack talking each other, like in the bus, or we were in this big van on the way home or whatever. And they were totally like, going back and forth. And one was like, "You're just a bot, man." And then one of them was like, "Yeah," like, and like same thing, like in the same band was like, "You're just some NPC." You know what I mean? Just this like shellless, shadowless, like has no purpose other than for someone to kill you.
Uh-huh.
Like in a video game. It's such an interesting put down, right? Because it's like you're empty and you're just a shell. You're just
Yeah.
a
It
thing that
doesn't sound
takes the
like it's a very
place.
nice thing to say.
No, right? Yeah, it's just right. But it's like, there's kids and other video game culture that it's like made it into like an insult that they can all connect with because they play
Well,
video games and
and it's true though, at different times in our lives, we get kind of stuck into doing these things and we do become like a NPC or a bot. Like it's just
yeah,
this
or a
thing we
minion.
do. And it can be hard to get out of that sometimes. You kind of get in that routine and getting out of it can be troublesome. And I find that's a lot of times, recognizing and talking through those types of things with clients happens to where it's like, well, you don't have to.
Yeah,
You just kind of empower them, right? Give them back that
yeah,
matrix.
yeah. Help them kind of find some place to imbue power. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting too because it's such a great commentary on evil because Megatron is so subservient. And even though
Hmm.
he has this idea of like, well, I can get the power and use it, and then I'll be the most powerful. But it's like, no, that
Yeah.
doesn't work. Which is interesting to consider that Unicron somehow, I guess Unicron had the power just because of his sheer size. But he had demigod powers, right? He had something else.
Well,
He
that
knew
would
something
that
else.
would be like, my ring, my wedding ring to me means something. But that would be like, oh, my like a young kid coming up to me and saying, "I want that wedding ring because it will provide meaning in my life."
I'll be mature.
Yeah,
It'll be
but
the
that it
status
doesn't
symbol.
work that way, right?
Right. Yeah.
And yet we can believe so much in our minds that it will, that we
Yeah.
take someone else's matrix to gain that
Put
ability.
it on ourselves to
But what does it
appear.
do? It just hurts
Right.
someone, right? We just hurt someone because we've taken something from them,
Right.
and then it doesn't do anything to us.
Right. Because the power is not the right kind of power. We're not using it in the
Exactly.
right way. We don't understand it. We don't know how to use it, which Hot Rod, he understood that he had to go directly at Unicron. He
Yeah.
understood that it was his purpose to wield this power and that he needed to, because Optimus Prime says these things like, you'll know when, or you'll be able to use it at our darkest moment, which is the thing that what was the character, the one that was the Ultra Magnus, like, didn't, he tried to use it on the one planet, but that wasn't their darkest hour, so he was using the power. He wanted to use the power for good, but it wasn't the right time because he didn't
Yeah.
fully understand the depths of what the power really was for, that they really had the ability to get out of those situations without using this ultimate power, right? They had enough power within themselves by either developing friendships with these other races on this world, or there were ways for them to get through it.
Well, and something I agree, and something fun. Do you know who the voice of Hot Rod is?
No, I'm not
It's
looking at.
Judd Nelson
No,
from
shut the
Breakfast
front
Club.
door, dude.
Isn't that cool?
No, shut your face. Why is it
I
not
had
in here?
no
I'm looking at this.
idea. I
I'm
had
looking.
no
I'm looking at
idea.
IMDb right now. Well, Hot Rod's not even listed on
I know. I don't know if he
this.
wasn't credited or not, but I mean,
Why
it's
are
on the
they not?
movie. It's on the movie. It says he actually voices, I think, two. I can't remember.
How is it not?
Rodimus, maybe it was. I can't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Rodimus,
How
but
could they not have him listed
I
on the? Oh, there he
know.
is. Holy crap!
Isn't that awesome?
Because it
Mind
didn't even
blown.
occur. It didn't even occur to me because he wasn't in the top credits of
I
IMDb when I
know.
looked,
Yeah.
and so I didn't like dig down because it didn't sound familiar. But holy crap,
Yeah.
they
He
totally
is
used
Transformers
they
royalty.
totally used the Breakfast Club persona for Hot Rod.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And it
How
looks,
did
I'm just looking at a Transformers website real quick. It looks like, so he played Hot Rod
and Rodimus Prime.
Rodimus Prime in the
Which one's
movie.
Rodimus
And
Prime?
then Rodimus, I can't remember which one. He played him in the animated, I think, show. And then he plays them in Transformers Titans Return. I have no idea. And Transformers Power of the Primes. He also plays Unicron in that one. So he's like a Transformers dude. And I had no idea. No idea.
Did a bunch of voice work. That's so cool. That
Yeah, I thought that was really fun when I noticed that.
Bender is Hot Rod.
We just talked about Bender.
Fantastic. I know, that's so cool. We did. We just talked about him. That's hilarious. Nice little catch there, dude.
Yes, thank you. I try.
You did. You hit it out of the park on that one. So yeah, I think that whole metaphor is powerful. That notion of, that Hot Rod. And it's cool too. I think that Hot Rod, who is a little bit more on edge, a little bit more willing to, more cavalier, is what it did take to defeat Unicron, and realizing that you had to be kind of cavalier. Like, what else are you going to do in the face of something that just annihilates and eats everything,
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because it shows just a different aspect. I think sometimes maybe we feel like we have to be the thing, be the person that we look up to in order to be, to fulfill whatever it is that we feel like we should fulfill. And that's just not true. We can be ourselves.
Yeah, totally. We can take the principles. We can take the
Mm-hmm.
principles, internalize, and allow them to be manifested through the personality that is us.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I think even, I think even in my religious,
it's harder for young. I think as we're younger, it's harder. It still manifests as we get older too, of course, because we all have insecurities. But yeah, I think that's a really important principle with a lot of the youth that I think we both work with. But yeah, of course, you work with too.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. It's a great important thing to realize, that we don't just have to act out in the way that these heroes do, that we can find a way to use these metaphors or truths or ideas and bring them into action in a way that works from our personality and where we are from. Because, you're not going to do it. I mean, that's what's so cool about some of these people, and what's so unique is, like, you're not going to be Optimus Prime, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime.
Well, the cool thing is Optimus Prime is awesome, but they didn't need Optimus Prime to defeat this crazy thing, right? And so maybe there's lots of ways to be really awesome.
There is lots of ways to be really awesome. Especially if you can have a transformer tape shooting out of your chest.
Yes.
And you sound like Soundwave. The sound effect they do on his voice.
Oh, yeah. Soundwave is awesome. It was fun.
that's a great point to end on, I guess, man.
Yeah, it was a fun. I enjoyed
It's a
it.
great show.
Oh man, it did.
You
The
got the
music.
touch.
Yeah, the music is the first
You
thing. As soon as it started, I was like,
The
"Holy
techno,
cow!"
the techno
It's like,
music.
whoa! I feel like
I
tons of
had a little
nostalgia right there.
I had a little bit of the experience with this that I did also with Terminator 2, that there
Uh-huh.
were times where the music didn't fit
Sure.
the
Yeah.
vibe of the
Yeah.
thing. It was just like it's like background like rock music. Like it's like they just got this background music. Like we got to put something background. We need some
Yeah.
backdrop sound, and they just like well
Yeah,
we'll
it's
just
like
use
the
one of the
car scene,
songs.
right? In Terminator, where they're driving
It's
in the
like
car and all of a sudden there's this really crappy background in the
yeah, and I'm
car.
like yeah,
You're
it's
like,
like
what? That doesn't
wait,
fit
what are
with
we
this
doing? That
movie. This
doesn't
movie is
fit.
so high.
It's
But I
like
feel
why
like,
are,
yeah, the music at times, yeah,
didn't
was,
like there were
but
times
in
when it was
general, yeah.
great. There were times when it was great, and then there were times like
I do, even though the music didn't necessarily fit, I did like all the music
I
throughout.
did it too.
It
Yeah,
just, yeah, sometimes
the
it didn't
techno
match, I feel
rock,
like.
the techno rock. But for sure, Van Halen surging when he's all grabbing the Matrix.
Yeah.
All like they're all like, and they totally did like the old school frame,
Uh-huh.
like as it was like instead
Yeah.
of
It's like,
frame freezes as he was like, oh dude,
yeah.
oh, I
Okay,
have
okay,
to before we
go
close.
for it. Go for it.
So, dude, this I don't know what they call it. What do they call it when they show the names and like the names switch out and come in? There's like they call that something like in the movie
When
world,
like in the opening,
like the credits or the credits, I guess.
the
I
credits, yeah.
love the opening credit, like the zoom in or like the Atari looking like
Yeah.
zoom out or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like all of that was
That
just like
is
pure 80s.
so the movie, and I would say I agree 100%. Like the movie itself really was nostalgic to me, to like Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes.
Like I that just took me back to just, where's my small 13 or 15-inch TV or whatever it was.
Black and white.
Yeah, black and white is what I had. And it just like to be like sitting on my carpet, like right in front of it, right? I just felt like, holy cow, I feel like I'm a kid again. I loved that too. It was
Yeah, it's
awesome.
really interesting too. The animation of this movie definitely has like a Saturday morning cartoon
It
versus like a
does,
Secret
doesn't
of the
it?
NIM like quality,
Yes.
right? It had like a TV
Yeah.
cartoon quality. It's almost like they animated on a TV budget versus a movie budget,
Yeah, it totally could have been just right in the Saturday morning lineup.
right?
And it just took me right back to feeling like I was just, yep, watching cartoons early in the morning.
All right, Hasbro. I don't like your attempt at a reboot, but it was still a cool show.
I'm sure we'll get another attempt in the next, 5 years? It's
Yeah.
like every 10, 20 years we get new ones.
Amen. All right,
Thanks,
good times,
everyone.
everybody.
Adios, amigos.